Come to order now. Would the secretary read the meeting notice?
The Board of Directors of the School District of the City of Erie, PA will meet in regular session on Wednesday, October 17th, 2018, in the auditorium at East Middle School, 1001 Atkins Street, at 6 p.m. by request of the President, Frank Petrunger, Jr.
And Madam Secretary, would you now please call the roll?
Mrs. McNair?
Here.
Mr. Spagel?
Here.
Mr. Titus?
Absent.
Mrs. Alexandrovich? Here. Mr. Casillo?
Absent.
Here.
Online. He's on telephone.
Mr. Fabrizi?
Here.
Mrs. Feeney?
She's absent.
Mr. Harkins?
Here.
Mr. Petrunger?
Absent. Mrs. Feeney and Mr. Titus are en route to Harrisburg to represent us at the Pennsylvania School Boards Association Conference. Mr. Petrunger, our president, is absent because his death in the family, and Mr. Casillo is with us by phone. Tonight, our pledge of allegiance will be led by Isaiah Rayford, a fifth grade student from McKinley Elementary School. Introduced by Mr. Dana Supa, principal, followed by a moment of silence for William Balzer, retired teacher who passed away on September 14th, 2018. Also for Teresa Stegmeyer, retired cafeteria manager who passed away on September 22nd, 2018. And for Charles Kent, a retired teacher and coach who passed away on October 8th, 2018. Mr. Supa.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for having us this evening. Tonight I have the distinct pleasure and honor to introduce Ms. Isaiah Rayford from McKinley Elementary. She's a fifth grader in Mr. Millamacey's class. She's accompanied by her father, Aaron Sr., and her mother, Savon Rayford. She's got a sister, Ariana, who's 19 years old. She's an Erie High School graduate of the first class. Zaria, 17 years old. She's currently at Erie High. Aaron Jr., who is 12 years old, and he's at Wilson in 7th grade. He's also a McKinley product. So when I asked Isaiah what she liked most about school, I got a really cool answer. She said, I really like language arts, and I like our new pilot program that we're doing, the CKLA program, which is Core Knowledge Language Arts. And I asked her why, and she said, because I feel, and these are her exact words, I feel like we're more engaged in writing and history and reading about biographies of people who had overcome adversity. She's an AB student. She's a classroom leader. She does track at the Booker T. Washington Center, and she plays basketball with her brother as part of her personal interests. Isaiah is a lifelong McKinley student who is a perfect example of a McKinley Mariner. I've had the honor of seeing her from kindergarten all the way through, along with her brother Aaron, and I've gotten to know her and her family very well. As for the future, Isaiah wants to go to Collegiate Academy, then on to college at Mercyhurst. She specified that already, and then she wants to go to law school to become a lawyer. So at this time, Isaiah Rayford.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Isaiah, would you come over here and shake hands with each of us? We'd love to have the honor of doing that with you. Isaiah, pause for a moment. Mr. Casillo is listening, and he'll want you to know that we have this certificate to recognize this moment where you led us tonight. And here is a flag to remember it by.
Thank you.
And a pizza, certificate for a pizza from all of us. And we thank you and appreciate what you're doing. Thank you. Ms. Doreen Petrie, a teacher at Northwest Pennsylvania Collegiate Academy, will now give us a PowerPoint presentation on school gardens. Ms. Petrie?
Good evening, Mr. Polito, Mrs. Habersky, and school board directors. Thank you so much for allowing us to give our presentation on school gardens. My name is Doreen Petrie. I'm a science teacher at Collegiate Academy and the project manager of Belong. Belong stands for Becoming Empowered While Living Our Natural Gifts. And it is much more than gardens, even though that's what we're going to focus on this evening. We also have many environmental programs within the district: water conservation, waste reduction, energy audits in various grade levels. So environmental literacy is so important because we see with these hands-on, many times outdoor programs, students have the opportunity to become citizen scientists and take pride in their communities. And so environmental education is essential. One of the main objectives of Belong is a model of students becoming experts and then teaching others, teaching adults, teaching other students, teaching people in the community. It also has a strong focus on serving the Erie community. Every one of these programs has a service component. For example, during the entire month of August, we donated yields from our school gardens to the Emmaus Soup Kitchen, and that will continue. It also addresses sustainable careers, and we look for curriculum gaps and how outdoor education can fill those gaps. I'd like to introduce now Stephanie Seiner. We work together. She's an AmeriCorps Vista. Stephanie?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for letting us be here. I've been working with Mrs. Petrie and Erie School District for 2.5 years through AmeriCorps as a full-time service member, and I get to go out into the gardens every day and work with students and teachers, sometimes families, sometimes other groups that come to see what we're doing, and it has been wonderful just to see the curiosity of the students and see what they get to learn when we go outside, how they connect it to what they learn in the classroom. And just last week, I was at Deal with an after-school program, and we were looking at plants as their seeds. We were harvesting seeds, and one of the students said, "Oh, this is just like science, but it's real." And I think that making that connection with what they are learning in the modules and what they're learning in the core subjects, and then seeing it outside in the real life and learning real skills like growing food, learning how to eat healthy, learning how to grow things at home, has been really important and has been a really wonderful thing we get to do. And now I'm going to introduce two of our participants from our elementary gardens, and this is Barb Gelcher and Grace Spalding from Harding Elementary.
It's so nice to be here tonight. This is my first year in the Harding Garden, and I just didn't know that it was going to be so much fun. They're such dedicated people that I met: Doreen Petrie, Stephanie Seiner, the Master Gardeners, and many others. And there was an Eagle Scout that built a very nice section at the garden, and y'all ought to come and see it. We have picnic tables for the students for their garden classes. We have some musical instruments, a drum and some chimes. We have a little bit of art going on there. We painted some stones, and there's a large stone that's painted for Harding School Garden. And my daughter-in-law, Jessica, took quite a few pictures, Jessica Spalding. I have been with the kids when they came for class. We weeded, we planted, we watered the crops, we identified the plants. I sampled something new that Stephanie planted, some ground cherries and some Mizuna lettuce, which is mustard flavored. It's wonderful working with the kids in the garden, and I watched Grace just enjoy herself there. I invited her to come. She learned about eating different things like broccoli, and Max, my grandson who came, wanted the spinach so he could make a spinach salad. And I looked over at him, and he was eating a sweet pepper just like an apple. Harding School we went on the bus with Perry Grover Cleveland to the Waterford Fair. The high point of this was the kids found their kale, and they got a blue ribbon for it. And some of the kids were able to milk a goat. The beekeepers were there. They had a large window. It's a teaching kind of a thing. And they painted the wings of the queen bee pink so the kids could see her. The kids were all interested in visiting the different areas of the fair. And some of the moms that were there, moms and dads, picked up some information, so maybe the kids will enter some stuff on their own next year. The president at the fair took time with us at the beginning of our tour and at the end of our tour. And the Waterford Fair Association presented a good educational experience for the kids. I think this was a good example of farm to school. Grace, would you like to talk?
Thank you, Barb. I'd like to introduce Amanda Vicky. She's a family and consumer science teacher at Wilson Middle School, and Sky Rogers and Annabelle Aldridge, members of their green team.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having us. I'm Amanda Vicky. I'm the family and consumer science teacher, and it's a pleasure to be the advisor for the gardeneers at Wilson and how I can incorporate everything that we do in the garden into my classroom.
Good evening. My name is Sky Rogers.
Hello, my name is Annabelle Aldridge.
And Wilson is my first garden I have ever been to. I started in 6th grade, my first year there. And the garden has really made me happier. I get excited every time we have a meeting, like, what are we going to grow this year? What's going to be harvested today? And it helps building teamworking skills because everybody needs a job, thinking who's going to do the compost, who's going to plant seeds, who's going to water. Everyone gets acquaintance with different kinds of plants and weeds that we can find all over.
Wilson's Gardening Club is also my first experience with gardening. Before Wilson's Gardening Club, I haven't really had much experience with gardening at all, so this is a good experience for me and peers around me. The Gardening Club has helped me build a good work ethic, and I'm becoming more familiarized with working with my peers and other students, etc.
The garden clubs help me. I have gained a knowledge that I can share with my friends and family. When I go home, sometimes I bring home different fruits or vegetables that I've gotten from the garden that my family might not know about. And I get to teach them about what it is. And some weeds that you can find in your own backyard are edible. And I like to find those and have them try them and teach them all about different edible stuff that you can find right in your own backyard and all around the neighborhood.
I've gained knowledge from the Wilson Gardening Club. For example, I brought home a tomato plant one day, and I used prior knowledge and tips from the Gardening Club helping me taking care of it. I started growing plants in my backyard, and gardening is now a productive hobby of mine.
The garden also, it gives everybody knowledge. Everybody who joins it or even comes for one meeting gains more knowledge than most people have about gardening and plants and all of that outside. It helps us all build teamwork more that we've had from class and stuff. And also, you get to go outside more often. It helps you eat healthier because what you grow in the garden, you want to try rather than just watch it grow and then give it to somebody else. You also want to know what it is yourself. So you eat healthier, and it's a great way to give back to the community.
Outside of school, my mom even has a garden of her own, and I now enjoy helping out with my garden along with her. This new hobby gives me experience in gardening and helps me connect with my parents and family. I'm excited to learn new tactics on how to properly take care of crops. It feels good to give back to my community, and the gardening club gives us advantages that not many other extracurricular activities get to experience. Gardening club gives me something to look forward to every month. I'm excited to, come to the meetings, see all the other gardeners, and watch our crops' growth and progression.
Thank you, girls. I'd now like to introduce Alexa and Olivia Pierce, Collegiate Academy Green Team members.
Good evening, everyone. So I'm Alexa, and I joined the Green Team during my freshman year of high school about 2 years ago. It was one of the first clubs that I joined of the year, and by far I can say it's the most I've been committed to. There was one thing about Green Team that made me want to keep coming back. For me, Green Team is an organization I can find solace in and seek refuge on days when homework seems to be weighing me down, both physically and mentally. Going out to the garden on a beautiful summer and fall evening with my peers allows me to detox the stress of a typical school day and think about the environment that surrounds me, which I believe we sometimes take for granted. It is a place of therapy for me, and I will be always thankful for that. Working with Mrs. Petrie and Stephanie on projects gives me a chance to expand my knowledge in a way where I'm genuinely interested in the subject and do not feel pressure to learn because there will be an exam on it in the future. In Green Team, I feel like I have a definite impact on the world we all live in, or find purpose, and I'm always learning new ways to improve it for future generations. Thank you.
Hello, my name's Olivia Pierce, and I'm a 10th grader at Collegiate Academy. I just joined Green Team this year, but I've already seen and felt the impact that it has, on the community and on the students. And it's a really good program, and I'm just happy that it's here for students to do. It teaches us more things that you would even learn about the environment and your whole life. So, and I'm happy that it's a program, and it's already achieved so much. So, and I believe that it's going to achieve more for the environment and our community. Thank you.
Thank you, girls.
Well, one of the reasons we're here tonight is because our programs have been moving from just occasional going out to the garden or after school programs into something that we really want to enhance the curriculum and to offer some things that very few school districts have. And we applied for a grant last winter from the USDA, which is called Farm to School. And it is a nationwide program that brings local foods into school districts and childcare facilities, and paired with education in careers and in nutrition and in gardening, and really tries to cover every way that food and food systems could affect students and families. And we were awarded the grant this year in June, which was very exciting for us. It was awarded to Erie School District. And so now we're working for a year with that grant funding to create a strategic action plan for how we could implement Farm to School in Erie. And we've already done quite a few activities as part of that. We're meeting with a leadership team. We're going to Buffalo to look at their program and see what we could implement here. We're looking at curriculum, and we're looking at ways that we could tie in the goals of Erie School District with the goals of Farm to School to ultimately offer more food options to our students and more education options to them.
And finally, and I'll just mention that we are they awarded the USDA this past year 73 grants all over the country. We are one of 2 in Pennsylvania. Grow Pittsburgh was the other one. So since when we install a garden in the spring of 2019 at Strong Vincent, every school will have a garden. And of course, Erie High has the landscape and horticulture programs. And so we've started just beginning the idea of a K-12 or even pre-K-12 horticulture pathway. And the ideal situation would be that every student in every school every year would have some type of touch or experience in the gardens, because we have these at all the schools. And I will just tell you a quick little story. I was at Lincoln this afternoon in the GEARS program. We were pulling out the plants, getting the garden ready for winter, and one of the girls who's in 5th grade said, "But I won't have a garden next year." And the teacher said to her, "Well, where are you going?" And she said, "Wilson." And we said, "Yep, there's a garden there, because there's a garden at every school." So this is a pathway that we're hoping to look at and build on what we've already established. So thank you all for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Grace. My favorite part about the garden was spending time with my Grammy and planting radishes. And then I picked them. And once I picked them, I went home and I tried them, but I didn't care for them because they weren't very good.
All right. Thank you, Grace. Good job. Thank you. Took her all that time to get up that nerve.
We're grateful for your presentation. It's refreshing, it's uplifting, and encouraging to know that so many of you are doing what you're doing and will continue to. We know Mrs. Petrie's been devoted to this for quite some time, and for her to have harnessed all of these interested students and co-gardeners, it's especially with today's concerns that many of us have about the environment and the attention to natural foods, and just the fact that, as some of the young ladies said, the connection to the natural world is a valuable thing, and it's just nice to know that these good things are happening. Thank you for your presentation.
We appreciate your support. Thank you.
Next, Miss Ann Silverthorne has a presentation for us on William E. DeMaurier, Erie's forgotten educator and servant leader. Ms. Silverthorne?
Good evening. Thank you so much for allowing me to address the board this evening and tell you a little bit about William Edward DeMaurier and his life of service. William Edward DeMaurier was a teacher and administrator in the Erie School District from 1906 to 1940, and he continued serving as a volunteer for nearly another decade after his retirement. My goal tonight is for you to find value in learning about this ordinary and extraordinary man, and perhaps be inspired to recognize his contributions to the Erie School District in some permanent way. First, I'll share with you how the project began. In 2004, I was working at Gannon University as their grant writer, and I attended an auction preview at AKD Printing on West 11th Street. And there I found a stack of old books, and on top of that stack sat a moss green journal, and you see it here. Inside was written, "This book belongs to W.E. DeMaurier," and it also offered a reward, so I knew it must have been important to its owner. Inside I found original handwritten poetry written nearly 70 years before. The verses were sophisticated and about unusual topics like steel, and you'll find that poem and a few others on the handout. Several days later, in a dramatic bid against one other woman, the journal and the entire pile of books that it sat on was mine for a grand total of $7.50. The poet was William Edward DeMaurier, and through more than a decade of research, I learned about his leadership roles in education, sports, and music programs. Reviewing my findings chronologically, connections were made, and a basic thesis statement was born. And that is, service to others is worthwhile, even if unrecognized. William never received much recognition during his life or after his death, but his influence stretches around the globe and across centuries. From this, it's clear that immediate reward does not always make one's life meaningful. William's life fits closely that described by Robert K. Greenleaf as a servant leader, one who starts with the desire to serve and then becomes a leader rather than the opposite. William Edward du Maurier was born on August 30th, 1871 in Afton, New York, which is about 75 miles north of Scranton, Pennsylvania. His name has French origins, and over a couple of hundred years, it underwent some nonsensical variations. And even though it was spelled Dimorier, everyone pronounced it Demery. William wrote, "This foolish thing has been a great troublemaker, for so few can spell it and fewer can pronounce it. Today, most owners of the name pronounce it either as du Maurier or du Maurier, and I've taken to pronouncing it just as written." William came from a farming family, and his mother had been a school teacher before she was married. In the early days, William taught in a one-room schoolhouse, even though he had not yet earned his high school diploma. He started also developing quite a reputation as a Baptist preacher. But he finally graduated from high school at the age of 25, and then he entered Colgate University in 1899. He quickly established himself as a student leader there. In 1903, he graduated from Colgate University with a degree in English at the age of 31. He then taught in upstate New York for 3 years, and during that time, he jotted down his desire for humility and unselfishness, and those words sustained him for his entire life. In 1906, William came to Erie, and he rented a room on West 6th Street. He would never own a home of his own. His first contract as head of the English department at Erie High was for $1,007, which would be about $28,000 today. Erie High, which was built in 1891 at 10th and Sassafras, was severely overcrowded. It contained both a high school, headed by John C. Deal, and a grammar school run by Charlotte Lucci. William served as treasurer of the school's athletic association, and he also advised the debate team and the yearbook staff. The Erie High yearbooks indicate that he possessed a dry sense of humor, and he was called by the nickname Demi. In those years, there had been some unsuccessful efforts to find funding for an athletic field. And in 1912, an Erie High yearbook article stated that William was working hard with a committee of prominent businessmen to gain funding for the project. The school board also appropriated funds, and the students were challenged to match its contribution. William led the fundraising for the field and helped to source the land, 10 acres of land at 24th and Cranberry, also negotiating its acquisition. In the spring of 1914, the athletic field was ready for use by the track team, and then the baseball diamond and football field were also completed. It would eventually be renamed Ainsworth Field. In 1914, the west side of the athletic field was complete, and here is an image that shows the original plans. The building committee, which included William du Maurier, designed the west side for a grandstand, baseball, football, track facilities, and tennis courts. The center was reserved for lawn sports, a plaza, a recreation pavilion, lockers, and a pool. And the east side was reserved for boys and girls gymnasiums, croquet, volleyball, handball, and ice hockey. In 1922, the school board, still dealing with severe overcrowding, approved plans for a new school to be built on the east side of the athletic field. And today, the property consists of Ainsworth Field, defunct tennis courts, and a decommissioned school building. The problem with this is that those who contributed to the athletic Field Fund shared a vision that never fully materialized. So what if it were possible to restore the area to something like its original plans, with fundraising, corporate sponsorships, and foundation, corporation, and government grants? It could be possible. Well, in 1914, William initiated a project at Erie High which resembled the well-known K-12 newspapers and education program. And in 1916, while facing severe overcrowding, William and Principal John Deal were concerned with the dropout rate. So they developed an attendance campaign, which resulted in record enrollment increases, making a strong case for a new high school. Although William was no stranger to servant leadership by this time, he would embody that role during his years at Academy High. In 1919, he was promoted to a counselor role and then assistant principal at the new high school. While at Academy, William served as vice president of Erie Associated Charities, an organization directed by prominent businessmen and civic leaders. He also funded a scholarship for a young boy in China who grew up to be an educator just like himself. William was also a patron of the arts. It was through him that choir legends Morton Luvas and Abed Pop Grender were hired at Academy. William served as business manager for the choir, which became nationally known, performing at World's Fairs, on national radio, and even at the White House. He also petitioned the school board for more band program funding. William served as director of PIAA and as Academy's athletic director. As such, he sometimes found himself in the middle of conflicts, such as teams in the district displaying poor sportsmanship or using overage players. In 1927, William arranged a series of football games between Academy and a high school in Atlanta, Georgia. John Carney, who was the author of Saga of Erie Sports, credited William for the event, which was one of the first intersectional scholastic games ever played in this country. According to John Carney, William helped to establish the Academy football team's formidable reputation. He wrote that Demi should always be remembered as the man who put Erie sports on the map. At a November 1922 school board meeting, a citizens committee was approved to raise funds for the construction of a stadium at Academy High School. This is often written about as the beginning of the stadium project, but there's empirical evidence that William was at work with it as early as 1919. Many fundraising events followed, and numerous local organizations contributed, including the Service Star Mothers, whose children had served or died in the World War. They asked that the stadium be dedicated as a memorial to those who had made the ultimate sacrifice. So on November 11, 1924, Veterans Memorial Stadium was dedicated. Armistice Day was a fitting occasion for the dedication of a monument to those who fought in the World War. In front of 15,000 people, after inspiring speeches by civic and military leaders, East beat Central 21-0. That year, the Academy Yearbook was dedicated to William for his work on the stadium project. The tribute included the following: "There are grave doubts that this ambition would have been fulfilled if he had not taken the initiative." The stadium has undergone renovations over the years, and now, although it only seats 10,000 people instead of 15,000, it reigns as the largest structure for gathering spectators in Erie. In the summer of 1913, William was now 68 years old, and he was on a trip out west when he received a letter from Superintendent C. Herman Gross informing him that the mandatory retirement age for school district employees had been lowered by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. William could retire immediately or go on sabbatical for 1 year at half salary, and he chose the sabbatical option. There was no traditional lead-in to his departure, no long goodbyes, no time to plan retirement or appreciation dinners. But William wasn't completely absent from Academy in the early 1940s. The 1941 yearbook mentioned that he was frequently seen in the halls and was still arranging concerts, trips, and making plans for the choir. But now William entered a period of productivity and creativity, writing many poems in that daybook that he thankfully took the time to date. And sometime in the spring of 1944, William left his journal of poems at AKD Printing Company for publishing. Did it fall behind a filing cabinet? It's unlikely that he would have forgotten to retrieve it. Inside the front cover, under his name and address, he had offered a reward for its return. But if that loss had not occurred, he might have been forever forgotten in history. William had selected approximately 70 of his poems for inclusion in Rhymes and Some Reason, and you see the book there. Superintendent C. Herman Gross wrote the preface, stating that William had been a devoted teacher and administrator who went beyond his normal duties. In 1944, William heard that the Erie School District was seeking a counselor for Academy. He wrote to the superintendent offering to do the job for free. He cited his years of experience and he said, "My head may not be very good, but my heart is in it." Also in 1944, William was mentioned in the Academy yearbook as the father of the choir. Although the war had limited the choir's travel, William was still involved as its business manager. But by 1948, the days William spent in Afton, New York, far outweighed those spent in Erie. In fact, the 1948 yearbook contains no references at all to William. In an undated letter to the superintendent, William wrote in barely legible cursive, slanted on the page, "At this time each year I still long to get back, but time says no. I hope the choir exists in heaven and that I may be appointed to manage it and take it to the various stars for concerts. Have I overdone this grand statement? Am I foolish in thinking as I do about it?" Well, on July 14th, 1951, William suffered a cerebral hemorrhage and entered Afton Hospital, and then he passed away on July 10th, 1951, at the age of 79. The fact that both Ainsworth Field and Veterans Stadium have endured for so many years is a testament to the value of both of those projects. John Carney wrote in the Saga of Erie Sports that there should be a Hall of Fame for Erie sports and suggested William's name to be included. Today, the Metropolitan Erie chapter of the Pennsylvania Sports Hall of Fame exists, but does not include William's name. However, I recently joined the organization and I have nominated him. Perhaps even more important than the sports and structures was William's far-reaching effect on the people he influenced during his lifetime. There were the many students he taught and counseled, and the many hearts inspired during his preaching days. There were many more that we will never be aware of, but that's the same with any of us. We will never know if the smallest kindness we show to a person we simply pass on the street will make that person's life better, and thereby have a ripple effect that could eventually travel around the globe. William devoted his life to service, but why didn't he receive more recognition? Why was his name never applied to any building or program? Well, in an essay, Robert K. Greenleaf, a retired AT&T executive, wrote, "The servant leader is servant first. It begins with the natural feeling that one wants to serve first. Then conscious choice brings one to aspire to lead." When I first started working on the Du Maurier project, I had an uncomfortable feeling that William would not have wanted me to call attention to himself. But when it became clear that his life of service could inspire others to do the same, I had a sense that he would approve. So I thank you very much for your time. I hope that this short presentation has inspired you to learn more about William E. Du Maurier. Perhaps you'll consider recognizing his accomplishments in some way, not just for him, but for the students and adults who might be inspired to offer their time and talents as leaders. And you can find the complete presentation, which is about an hour long, on YouTube, and much more about his life on my website.
Thank you, Anne.
Thank you very much.
It's enlightening to learn how the problems that we face today aren't brand new, and that there were people who stepped up and did work to address them, and successfully. And I think one of the important things that you stressed here is his being a servant leader. Today, there's plenty of people who lead and want to lead, but that's what they want to do, is lead and tell people what to do and bully people around. But this, as you just said, according to Robert Greenleaf, seek to be a servant first, and then after that, the desire to lead will find its way to you. Just the poetry aspect, I happen to have read a couple of these, and I've read my share of poems over the years, and as often as not, I get tuned out right away, and I don't know what the poet is talking about, but for some reason, I found this guy very engaging to me, and I say that this guy, just as with everything else that Ann said, he didn't write these poems to become famous or to seek praise, but he just had an active mind and put the thoughts down, and they are very timeless. So I'd like to make sure that the rest of the board, who unfortunately couldn't have been here in person to hear your presentation, to at least get a copy of this list of points, and we'll invite them to view this recorded meeting when they return. I'm sure they'll be interested. And I know Mr. Petrunger will be. He's a neighbor who lives across the street from that property where the athletic field was. And perhaps, as you suggested, there is some future rooted in our past, some of the cliches that everything old is new again, or there's nothing new under the sun. Perhaps revisiting some of those plans would be a good thing to do. So we thank you for your presentation, the work you put into it. It's a wonderful story. Thank you, Ann. Abigail Adams is a senior at Collegiate Academy, and she has served as the Vice President of Student Senate for her freshman, sophomore, and senior year. Her parents are Emily Rodriguez and Brad Braggins, and she has 5 younger siblings, Braden, Aiden, JC, Annalise, and Ace. In addition to Student Senate, Abby serves as the President of Collegiate's Chamber Singers. She's captain of the Erie High girls soccer team. She's a board member for the Key Club. Abby is a member of the National Honor Society, King TV, and Green Team, as well as a peer tutor for math and a member of the Writing Center. In her free time, she enjoys singing and playing the piano or ukulele, and volunteering at Camp Fitch. In the future, Abby hopes to travel and become fluent in Spanish while studying to become a physician's assistant. And Abby sits to my right, and she's our new student representative for the board, for October and November of this year from Northwest Pennsylvania Collegiate Academy. Abby, is there anything you want to say to us?
I'm just really honored to have this opportunity to represent my peers and collegiate, so I just want to thank you for giving me that and for letting me sit in.
Keep up the good work, Abby. Thank you. Okay, in keeping with Mr. Petrunger's tradition of recognizing the contributions that many community organizations and people have made to us, we're very happy tonight to recognize Glenwood United Methodist Church as this month's community supporter of Erie Public Schools. Over the past year, Glenwood United Methodist Church has become a close partner with Erie High School and provided support in a number of ways. The church serves as a community-based instruction site for the school's life skills classes and is an emergency reunification site for life skills students at the school. This month, the church collected supplies for the life skills classes at Erie High from a wish list provided by teacher Denise Kinzig. Many of the supplies were items that had been lost in the 2017 fire and included a KitchenAid mixer, as well as classroom and hygiene items. On behalf of the students, teachers at Erie High, the board would like to thank, and now thanks, Glenwood United Methodist Church. And I'd ask Pastor Matt Judd to come forward to the stage and accept this recognition and a plaque from us. Pastor Judd. Pastor Judd politely declined to comment because his words were, "Never give a preacher a mic." Okay, the board met in executive session on Wednesday, October 10th, 2018, in Conference Room 3 at the Dr. James E. Barker Leadership Center, 148 West 21st Street, from 6:24 p.m. to 6:43 p.m. regarding personnel matters. And again this evening, Wednesday, October 17, 2018, in the library at East Middle School from 5:14 p.m. to 5:43 p.m. regarding legal, personnel, and real estate matters. Next, we'll have the report of the superintendent presented by Mr. Brian Polito. Mr. Polito?
Thank you. All 8th graders from Wilson, Strong Vincent, and East will be visiting Erie High this Friday for a tour of the Career and Tech Labs and Magnet programs. Just a reminder that there'll be no school for Erie High School students only on Friday to make room for the 8th grade students. We hope that our middle school students and their families will also attend Erie High's open house next Thursday evening from 5 to 6:30. And Erie High will also be hosting a college fair on October 30th, and both high schools will be participating in FAFSA week during the week of October 29th. In addition to coordinating 8th grade visits to Erie High, our middle schools are also busy this month making sure students and families are aware of the new middle school STEM certification program that's now available at all 3 schools. This pathway can begin in the 6th or 7th grade, and requirements must be completed by 8th grade. In keeping with the National Farm to School Month, Grover Cleveland recently opened its new outdoor classroom and garden, and Joanna Connell unveiled its pollinator garden. Joanna Connell was also one of 4 finalists for How Cool Is Your School program. Please visit the district's Facebook page and vote to help them win the grand prize. And finally, Ms. Sabursky and I are looking forward to attending the PTA convention in Erie this weekend. We want to congratulate Ms. Kelly Heberly from Strong Vincent Middle School, who will receive the PTA Volunteer of the Year Award. Congratulations, Kelly. That concludes my report.
Any questions, comments from the board? If not, may we have a motion to accept the report of the superintendent?
So be it. So moved.
Moved by Mr. Spiegel, seconded by Mr. Cassillo. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Report is accepted. Next, we have hearing of citizens. Persons desiring to speak for 5 minutes must submit their request in writing to the Secretary's office at least 1 week prior to the board meeting. All others may speak for 3 minutes. Only one speaker. Okay, we'll put that on hold for just a moment. We have the Stair Climber Award presentation next. Mr. Nixon, Mr. Ken Nixon.
Good evening, everyone. It's with great pride and enjoy that I'm here to represent and present the Stair Climber Award. First things, real quick, just wanted to set back, go back to last year. We started this as a pilot, and so I just want to thank, Mr. Polito, Mr. Bursky, the board, definitely all my colleagues and everything that were open to listening to an idea that kind of came about regarding students being stick-to-itive or showing tenacity and grit and perseverance and making improvements in their attendance, in their positive behavior, and in their classroom performance. So we are at this point now where we did it for 3 months, March, April, and May, and when it was successful. We did a survey over the summer with the principals, and the feedback was astounding that a lot of people supported it and wanted to see it continue. So we're here now, and we're going to do it for the full year, October through May. So I just want to thank you guys for giving this opportunity. With that being said, Mrs. Jones and also Natalie Kohler, as well as Ms. Mikowski up at Erie High School and the pre-engineering lab have put time into making these plaques for each and every one of the students that are going to be coming through and be award recipients today. So again, the reason why we have this Stair Climber Award is to recognize students that have shown improvements in their attendance, in their positive behavior, and their classroom performance. So without further ado, I'm going to start running down the list of our recipients. An 11th grader from Erie High School. Alex has been exhibiting a newfound respect for staff and his fellow students. He has learned this through the Maritime program. His attendance has improved as well. Ladies and gentlemen, Alex Rogers. Sorry, quick details. I apologize. So all the Stair Climber nominees, if you'd please just come down towards me. Ms. Daria Devlin will have a plaque for you, and you're going to step onto the stage, get a quick picture. We'll do a whole group picture with all the board behind you. Then afterwards, I'm asking all students and their parents to head directly out to the lobby, and we'll do an individual school photo with their administrator. Sorry, I didn't say that sooner. This is an 8th grader from East Middle School. His behavior has greatly improved from last year. He has no referrals at all this school year. Amari Smalls. I'm not sure. We kind of wondered if Amari was going to make it, but it's okay. 8th grader at Strong Vincent Middle School. Outstanding course performance, great behavior, exhibiting leadership in all areas. Kiana Parker. Seventh grader from Wilson Middle School. His behavior has improved greatly. Martavis McCullum. First grader from Grover Cleveland. This young man's behavior has greatly improved since last year. Tobias Thornton. Fourth grader from Joanna Connell, greatly improved in classwork and behavior. Samara Torado. Fourth grader from Deal Elementary. Miss Aiden has increased her fluency on dibbles and grown into a leader in the classroom. Kamar Aiden. Third grader from Edison Elementary. He has improved his behavior this year, only missed one day of school, is working hard and being helpful with Mr. Basil. They are glad that he rejoined Edison this year. Desarion Fisher. Good handshake, man. Fifth grader from Harding Elementary. Teachers have noticed a significant change in behavior and grades since last year, is setting goals for himself and taking responsibility for his choices. Amir Jones. Another great handshake. Fifth grader from Jefferson Elementary. Zoe tries her very best at everything she does. Perfect attendance in 2018. Zoe Range. Fifth grader from Lincoln Elementary. His behavior has improved greatly from all of his years in the Erie School District. Richard Steele. Fifth grader, sorry, let me hold off for a minute. Fourth grader from Perry Elementary, Jaden has made significant strides in improving her attendance, being on time daily and not missing a day of school yet this year. She has also started making big improvements in her schoolwork as a result of her new positive attitude. Jaden Spencer. Fourth grader from Pyford Burley. Marquise has been showing perseverance in building stamina. He has been working really hard to stay focused on his work and asking questions when he's getting frustrated or doesn't understand the task at hand. Marquise Butts. And we have two more, and I know that they should have been coming, but they had some appointments or they had some things scheduled, so hopefully they've made it, but I'm going to announce them. 10th grader from Collegiate Academy. She is improving getting to school on time, greatly reduced tardies so far this year. Jillian Turley. Fifth grader from McKinley, Jamarion has shown tremendous leadership skills from the start of the school year. Jamarion Boone. Ladies and gentlemen, our 2018, October 2018 Stick-to-Itive Stair Climbers.
Everybody look this way. And 3, 2, 1. One more. 3, 2, 1. All right, thank you.
Meet all the families and parents in the lobby. Thank you.
Our thanks to Mr. Ken Nixon for his continuing work in this area, recognizing these young people who are making great strides up the stairs. Our only speaker who wrote in for requesting 5 minutes of speaking time tonight is Mr. William McDonald. If he's here, Mr. William McDonald. This topic was to be Erie School District business. Mr. McDonald. Is there any other citizen who wishes to speak to the board this evening? If so, please approach the podium, State your name and address, and you'll have 3 minutes. Okay, on to committees and liaisons. Are there any committee and liaison reports? If not, there's
Mr. President,
Mr. Cassillo.
thank you. I just wanted to report that I attended the PEPS Gala Friday night, I believe it was, with my wife. I believe I saw you there, John.
And Mr. Spiegel, too.
Yeah, Tom was there. I didn't get a chance to talk to either of you, and I apologize. But I wanted to commend Daria Devlin and the committee for such a great event. Everyone that I spoke to was energized, and they certainly were appreciative of the effort that was expended. As we all know, PEPS is a leader in helping Erie School District financially, as well as being very supportive of our efforts. And Daria did a wonderful job emceeing the event. I think she missed her calling, but I wanted to just say that I did attend it, and I want to thank everyone that the entire committee from the PEPS program. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Cassillo, and I agree with you, and I'm sure Mr. Spiegel did too. It was a very nice, uplifting, enjoyable evening, and so many people with so much enthusiasm in the community that aren't just district people.
That's correct. Thank you.
Here we have a motion to accept the committee report.
So be it.
Is there a second? Moved by Mr. Spiegel, seconded by Linda. Ms. Alexandrowitz. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. No unfinished business before us this evening. We have, however, new business and supplemental new business. May we have an all-inclusive motion to approve the new business before us and the supplemental along with it?
So be it.
Moved by Mr. Spiegel.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Cassillo. Any discussion? Roll call.
Mrs. McNair? Mr. Spiegel?
Yes.
Mrs. Alexandrovich? Mr. Cassillo?
Yes.
Mr. Fabrizi?
Yes.
Mr. Harkins?
Yes. Next is the approval of minutes for the meeting of September 12th, 2018, as attached electronically to the agenda. May we have a motion?
So moved.
Who was that, Mr. Fabrizi?
Second.
Bob, I'm sorry.
That's
Moved
all
by-
right.
I got bad hearing, Mr. Cassillo. Mr. Cassillo moved the motion. Is there a second? How about you, Mr. Fabrizi?
I got it.
Okay. Seconded by Mr. Fabrizi. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Minutes are
Aye.
approved. Okay, next, we have the bills and payroll for approval. May we have a motion to pay them? And they include the schedule for bills October of 2018, and investment summary and non-major proprietary funds for September 2018 as attached electronically to the agenda. May we
So
have-
moved.
Moved by Mr. Cassillo,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Spiegel. Any discussion? Roll call.
Mrs. McNair? Mr. Spiegel?
Yes.
Mrs. Alexandrovich? Mr. Cassillo?
Yes.
Mr. Fabrizi?
Yes.
Mr. Harkins?
Yes. Now we come to the report of the secretary. May we have a motion to approve the report of the secretary?
So be it.
Moved by Mr. Spiegel. Seconded by Ms. Alexandrowitz. Any discussion? Roll call.
Mrs. McNair? Mr. Spiegel?
Yes.
Mrs. Alexandrovich? Mr. Cassillo?
Yes.
Mr. Fabrizi?
Yes.
Mr. Harkins?
Yes. Report is approved. Next, in award on bids, we have a bid for a snow plowing contract to Empire Snow Management Incorporated for the 2018-19 school year, the 2019-20 school year, and the 2020-2021 school years. Do we have a motion to award that bid?
I make a motion.
Moved by Mr. Cassillo.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Spiegel. Any discussion? Roll call.
Mrs. McNair? Mr. Spiegel?
Yes.
Mrs. Alexandrovich? Mr. Castillo?
Yes.
Mr. Fabrizi?
Yes.
Mr. Harkins?
Yes. Is there any other matter which any board member may wish to bring up at this time? I would just ask the secretary to make sure if she doesn't have enough copies of this DeMaurier thing, to make sure we get them from either Ms. Malone and make sure the other board member is aware. Precisely because nobody was aware of this person, I think we should be made aware and find an appropriate way to honor him when the time comes. Because we need to be reminded that there were such people, and we need people like this, and that's why we honor people like him. If there's no other item for anybody to bring up at this time, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Castillo.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Fabrizi. All those in favor? Aye. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.